Title: The Man Behind the Badge. The marble corridors of Whitehall Preparatory School radiated an air of entitlement. The brass nameplates, the hushed voices, the perfectly polished floors, all of it signaled to students and visitors alike. This was a place for the elite. But it was also a place clinging tightly to dangerous assumptions. The first, that a young black boy must be exaggerating if he says his father works at the Pentagon. The second, that schools like Whitehall are immune to national security threats. Both illusions shattered spectacularly on Parents' Day. IT started like any other Friday morning. 10-year-old Caleb Morgan was adjusting the knot of his tie, his hands trembling slightly as he stood in front of the bathroom mirror. The uniform, a crisp navy blazer with a golden W sewn into the lapel, fit awkwardly on his thin frame. He looked sharp, just as his father taught him, but inside, Caleb felt that old familiar knot of dread. "Breakfast is ready," his father called from downstairs. "Coming, Dad," Caleb replied, his voice tight. He took one last look at himself before heading down. His father, Eric Morgan, sat at the table reading something on his tablet. He was dressed casually, black polo, fitted slacks, no tie, but still exuded authority. It was something in the way he sat, back straight, gaze alert. "You got your stuff ready?" Eric asked, sliding a plate of eggs across the table. "Yeah," Caleb said, sitting down. "We're supposed to talk about our parents' jobs today." Eric glanced up, his face unreadable for a moment. "And what are you planning to say?" Caleb smiled nervously. "I was going to say you work in national security. At the Pentagon." Eric set his fork down, his eyes holding his son's. "Just remember what I always tell you." Caleb repeated the familiar phrase automatically. "Some things are safer if you don't say too much." Eric nodded. "Exactly. Smart kid." They finished eating in silence, the tension between them unspoken but understood. Whitehall Prep sat nestled in one of the wealthiest neighborhoods of Northern Virginia. The school had educated the children of senators, CEOs, and foreign dignitaries for over a century. As Caleb stepped out of their modest black Hyundai, he immediately saw a string of BMWs, Teslas, and even a Bentley in the drop-off lane. That he straightened his blazer, gave his dad a small wave, and marched inside. His best friend, Logan Martinez, met him at the front steps, bouncing with excitement. "You ready to make everyone jealous with your presentation?" "I don't know about jealous," Caleb laughed. "You kidding? Your dad works at the freaking Pentagon. That's like James Bond stuff." They pushed through the tall glass doors into the main hall, unaware that what was supposed to be a day of simple parent presentations would soon unravel into a national crisis de mess. Hastings, their homeroom teacher, had taught at Whitehall for nearly 2 decades. She was a tall woman in her late 40s with icy features and a reputation for being both sharp and condescending. To Caleb, she had always seemed vaguely skeptical of his presence at the school, as if waiting for proof that he didn't belong. "Good morning, class," she said as the bell rang. "Today, we'll be hearing from each of you about your parents' careers. Alphabetical order by last name." Caleb's heart sank. He was going first. He made his way to the front of the room, feeling all 25 pairs of eyes on him. "My name is Caleb Morgan," he began. "My father works for the Department of Defense. He's in charge of security protocols for national." "Speak up," Miss Hastings interrupted. "And let's keep it factual, Caleb." "He works at the Pentagon," Caleb said more loudly. There was a pause. Then came the laughter from Tyler Emerson, son of a hedge fund billionaire, and his usual posse. "The Pentagon?" Tyler scoffed. "What does he do? Sweep the floors?" The class erupted. "Enough," Miss Hastings said, but with little conviction. Her lips twitched in what might have been a smirk. "Let's try to be realistic, Caleb. Next time, ask your parents to help you stick closer to the truth." "I am telling the truth," Caleb mumbled, voice barely audible. "You may return to your seat," she said, already calling the next student. Caleb slumped into his chair, cheeks burning, the laughter still echoing in his ears. The rest of the day passed in a haze. Logan tried to comfort him, but nothing helped. Miss Hastings didn't just doubt him. She had made a public spectacle of it. And she wasn't done yet. During social studies, they began a unit on American government. When the Pentagon came up, she turned pointedly to Caleb. Since your father supposedly works there, perhaps you can tell us something about it that isn't in the textbook? Caleb's heart pounded. But this time, he was ready. It was built during segregation, he said, voice clear. So it has twice the number of bathrooms than needed, separate ones for black and white workers. They never changed it. A few kids actually looked impressed. And it has a hot dog stand in the middle, Caleb added. The Soviets thought it was a secret bunker during the Cold War. More laughter, but this time, it wasn't mocking.ms. Hastings's smile faltered. Interesting, she said stiffly, though not particularly relevant. But something had shifted. That evening, Caleb confronted his father. You've never come to career day, he said. Eric looked up from his laptop. You know I can't. My schedule, she humiliated me. My teacher. The whole class laughed at me. Eric was quiet. Do you want me to come this time? Caleb hesitated, then nodded. She said if you really work there, I should bring you. Eric nodded slowly. Okay, I'll be there. The next week crawled by. Miss Hastings continued her subtle digs. Creative imagination is a gift, she said one day while staring directly at Caleb. But this is a school for facts. Parents' Day arrived. Eric wore a sharply pressed navy blue suit with a small silver pin on his lapel. Not flashy, but unmistakably official. When they entered the classroom, Miss Hastings looked up, clearly expecting Caleb to be alone. When she saw Eric, her face froze. Miss Hastings, Caleb said, his voice steady. This is my dad. Eric extended his hand. Eric Morgan, Department of Defense. The room went quiet. Then came a knock at the door. A man in a black suit entered, speaking quietly to Eric. Eric excused himself. Government business, he said calmly as he stepped out into the hallway, leaving a visibly shaken Miss Hastings in his wake. Within minutes, Whitehall Prep was placed under a soft lockdown. Teachers were told to keep students in their rooms. The announcement was vague. Security protocol was all anyone said. Outside, unmarked black SUVs rolled to a stop. Armed agents fanned out, scanning the perimeter. Eric returned to the classroom moments later. Remain calm, he instructed. Everything is under control. But it wasn't in the building's basement. A suspicious device had been found, wired, hidden, and aimed at collecting student data. Intelligence suggested the school had been targeted because of the number of children with connections to military families, including Caleb. That a foreign operative had posed as a janitor for weeks. Security footage showed him lingering around Caleb's locker, watching him, learning his routine. Then came the unthinkable. While agents focused on the basement, the janitor slipped into the second floor. Caleb was gone. Eric's voice broke the silence on the radio. My son's missing. From that point, everything moved like a strike operation. Surveillance footage, tracking data, a hidden GPS in Caleb's school-issued tablet pinged from a warehouse across town. Eric assembled a 3-person team. No more. We go quiet. We go fast. What followed was a rescue mission straight from a Tom Clancy novel. Stealth approach, sniper cover, and a silent breach of the warehouse. Inside, Caleb was tied to a chair. The operative was waiting. Eric didn't hesitate. Shots fired. The man dropped. Caleb cried out, but he was unharmed. Dad, he sobbed as Eric untied him. I knew you'd come. They slipped out under cover of darkness, escorted by agents. No headlines. No press. Just a father reclaiming his son. The aftermath shook the school. Miss Hastings publicly apologized during morning assembly. I was wrong, she said, her voice cracking. I misjudged one of my students based on assumptions that have no place in this institution. Caleb didn't smile, but he nodded. Later that year, he gave a presentation to the entire school. His topic, seeing beyond the surface. And when he stood on stage, looking at a sea of faces that once doubted him, Caleb didn't think of revenge, he thought of truth. And how powerful it was when it finally walked into the room wearing a suit and a badge that no one could deny. The end.